Let's bring in Melissa Rohlin, Fox Sports NBA reporter, joining us again in studio. Very exciting. Hello, Melissa. Thanks for coming in.
Hello. So excited to be here. How are you?
Great. Don't mind me and Alex being weirdos.
I love the singing.
Yeah, Melissa was here in the studio when we were being all weird. Thanks again for joining us, Melissa Rohlin, Fox Sports NBA reporter, and you covered the Warriors for a while, and so I believe we had you on. We had you on before the championship, correct? Yes. Okay. So we were in the middle of the playoffs. So what was your reaction to the finals? I guess we'll start there since we hadn't talked to you about it, because I thought it was a tremendous postseason. I thought it was a great finals. I really enjoyed it. I would have liked for it to go to Game 7 because selfishly I like Game 7s, but it's fine. It went to a Game 6 and it was a very exciting series. What was your take on the finals?
I really wanted a Game 7 too. I thought it was a really interesting finals. You know, having covered the Warriors and being there when they were at the top of their dynasty and then seeing them just completely fall off, 2 losing seasons, finishing with the worst record in the league, 19 wins, Joy, just 2 years ago, to climbing the mountain again, seeing all of their stories, you know, Klay Thompson coming back from 2.5 years of injuries, seeing Steph, his greatness being questioned and him leading the team to the top again. It was really beautiful to see, actually.
Yeah, I loved it for Steph Curry. And now we're getting all of these stories about the finals from Draymond Green. And one of the sound bites that we played earlier from Draymond with the Old Man and the Three and Draymond Green Show podcast in the volume was that he talked about what happened in Game 4 with the hostile crowd in Boston and Steph sort of stepping in and directing the energy of the crowd towards him, giving him a little bit of, space and, ability to kind of come down emotionally, which is really strange for Draymond Green because we think of him as this, guy that likes that kind of attention. What did you think when you heard that? Does that surprise you coming from Draymond?
It was interesting because after that game, everybody was asked, what did you think of those chants?
Right.
And Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, they sarcastically called it real classy. They were upset by it. Everybody kind of expressed, disappointment in hearing 20,000 fans chant that obscenity. And the only person who claimed that they was not upset by that chant was Draymond Green himself. He said, I love it. It motivates me. So it was interesting to hear him reveal that it actually did kind of upset him. It kind of took him out of his game. It was interesting hearing him acknowledge that. That being said, it was also really cool to hear him say that he thinks that Steph Curry went off for 43 points in defense of him. And it's so funny to me because their relationship is so beautiful, and it didn't start out that way. When they first became teammates, they didn't think that they'd like each other. They're so different. I mean, Steph's background, he comes from privilege. Dre obviously came from poverty in Saginaw. They have different approaches. Draymond is really outgoing, talkative. Steph is a lot more quiet. They didn't think they'd become friends. And now they're brothers, and they have each other's backs, and they really play for each other.
Melissa Rohlin in studio with us, Fox Sports NBA reporter. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, where the connection and the emotional intelligence that Steph Curry has to even know to do that in that moment. So talk about their relationship a little bit, because I do think it's interesting. Me and Alex were talking earlier about, how much do you need to be friends? If you respect each other, do you really need to be friends to win a championship? We've seen different. I mean, we watched The Last Dance. So these guys were tackling each other. Not necessarily friends, but they had a respect for each other. Is that the case, or are they truly friends?
They're truly friends. I actually talked to both of them about this earlier this season, wrote a piece on it, and they told me stories about what their friendship is like behind the scenes. And essentially, they stick up for each other. They really have each other's backs. They really bonded also recently over both being fathers, and just, they've been with each other for 10 years. They've seen each other through all of these different stages in each other's lives, and they've become each other's supports. And, when you especially have so many 5 straight NBA Finals appearances, 4 championships in 8 years. They spend so much time together. They've played more than an extra season and a half of basketball over that period of time. And so they've spent more time with each other than their own families. And through that time, they've developed such a deep love for one another.
So there was a pettiness that that you talked about in your latest article with the Warriors. And a little bit of that in game 4 was Steph. Like, there was that moment where Steph was kind of running around doing that thing that, some people don't like that Steph does when he gloats a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I love it. Humble is not my brand. I don't care. I'm sure if you've seen my social media, you can tell. So I love it. And I also think if you're winning, you get to do that, which is why I don't have a problem with any of it. I'm sure Boston fans loved hearing that Draymond was upset, but you lost. So, I don't know how to tell you. Like, it didn't work. But congrats on rattling Draymond Green and making Steph go off for 43. But talk a little bit about that pettiness.
It was a lot of fun to see, actually, because the Warriors aren't a petty team. Like, Draymond, if anybody, is the guy who veers closest to that. He's obviously the mouth of the team, the soul of the team, but Steph's a quiet guy. He doesn't trash talk.
Yeah, I mean, are they not petty? I don't know that I would say that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, Clay took a little jab, in the press conference. I think Draymond is definitely someone I would describe as fully on petty. And just full transparency here, yeah. I am a petty person. Yeah. I embrace it. I don't deny that this is my toxic trait.
Yeah.
And I think for some people it is empowering. But Steph is, like you mentioned, the shimmy. That's been going on for a while now.
Right. I mean, there's definitely little things, don't get me wrong, but you saw it grow into this full-blown, beautiful pettiness during the NBA Finals. Like, especially Clay, he's a guy who doesn't really talk much. Like, he likes to talk to his dog more than other humans. And then after he wins the NBA championship, you have him bringing up, unsolicited, mind you, that Twitter exchange between, him and that Memphis player where the Memphis player brought up, the Warriors' previous motto and
strength in numbers.
Yeah. And it really irked him. It pissed him off for months after that, to the point where he brought it up after the Warriors won. And then you see Steph wearing a shirt that says, Ayesha Curry can cook, and Draymond takes a bunch of shots at the Celtics players. I think what happened was during those 2 years when they were counted out, they really got a chip on their shoulders. People, especially when Steph held up zeros over his eyes, making fun of ESPN analysts who claim that's how many championships the Warriors would win over the next 4 years, they remembered slights like that, and they used it as motivation during the finals. So these guys who aren't known for typically being petty, they relied on that and they used that as motivation. Similarly to how, like, Kobe, when he shot alone in the gym, he'd think of every negative thing anybody ever said about him. Or similarly, like, a lot of the all-time greats use pettiness as motivation.
Yeah, that's what I do when I'm in the gym. I'm like, I remember Tom 74657 said I was fat on Twitter. Let me do an extra rep. That's not true. Don't get crazy, Tom. No, I think it's very Patriot-like, actually, because to your point, they were bad for 2 years. And when they are favored, the Patriots would do this thing where they'd convince the entire locker room and everyone in the organization that they were underdogs when they were really favored to win the championship every year. I mean, I feel like I was the lone one, like, hello, the Patriots are really good. It's Bill Belichick. It's Tom Brady. Like, why are we talking about them like it's like this miracle that they're back again? And they are. There's remnants, I guess, when you have dynasties to each one. What is unique about this? Because we are now officially in a dynasty. What is unique about this particular dynasty?
What's unique about it is that they were dead.
Yeah.
And most dynasties, once they end, they don't come back to life. And they resuscitated themselves. I mean, nobody thought that they'd be a championship team this season. They defied all odds. Both Steph, Draymond, Clay, they're all 32, 34 years old. There's a bunch of young players who were unproven. Everybody came together during the NBA championship run in a way that nobody expected. Wiggins played exceptionally well. Yeah. Kevon Looney played exceptionally well. I mean, all of these guys, Jordan Poole at times played really well. I mean, all of these guys just came together in an unexpected way, and they just showed such a strong belief in themselves and each other after being totally counted out.
We're talking to Melissa Rohlin, Fox Sports NBA reporter, here in studio with us on The Herd. Joy Taylor in for Colin Cowherd. He'll be back next week from vacation. So Draymond also said that we didn't guarantee it, but he feels like they're going to win 3 of the next 4. Now, I don't think they're going to win 3 of the next 4. However, I do think when you're the dynasty, when you're our current dynasty, when you're the champions, when you're bringing mostly everyone back, you're at the top of the mountain. You get to talk to all the peasants that way. And I think that they will win another one. I would not be surprised if they win multiple ones. I'm going to defer to the dynasty when they believe that. But do you think that they will win more?
I do think they'll win more. I think they've proven that you can't count them out. It's interesting because I talked to Bob Myers right before the season ended, and he talked about just sort of how, at one point people were questioning whether the team should be blown up, and he felt like Steph, Dre, and Clay deserved another chance to win a championship together. And meanwhile, he's been trying to build pieces around them, develop those players, and everything came together so well. And I don't see any of them slowing down. Steph just gets better as he ages. He's gotten stronger. He's added musculature. He's become more of a complete player. He's a two-way player. We've seen him play better defense than he's ever played.
Yeah.
Clay, this postseason, he wasn't himself.
No.
Coming off ACL injury, coming off Achilles tear, he was not himself. He's going to get better this offseason. We're going to see a different version of him when he comes back. Draymond, he wasn't himself a lot during the playoffs. Like, we talked about those, obscene chants, which we can't repeat here, but
everyone knows.
Everybody knows. But they took him out of his game a little bit. He's known as being like the most gritty, toughest, hard-nosed player out there. And sometimes he wasn't himself. When those guys are all on, who can stop them?
Well, yeah, especially when you look around the West. I mean, you don't know this because this just recently happened, but I'm like very in on John Wall's the Clippers.
Her new favorite team.
I'm drinking Clippers Kool-Aid right now. I do think it's going to require them all being healthy in the postseason and deep into the postseason, which is obviously a big question mark with the Clippers. But when you look around the West and you look at the veterans that you need, the depth that you need to take them out, I agree with you. I think that they should be favored again. So let's talk about some other moves around the NBA right now, starting with Harden, who really struggled in the postseason this year. We haven't really seen consistent vintage Harden, if you will, for a while. He had one moment during the in the playoffs where we all got a little scared, and then he, came back down. But the report is that he's going to be making a bit of a team-friendly deal. To me, I feel like that's commendable. If this ends up happening, like, this is a smart move for Harden at this point in his career. They have an opportunity to win a championship in Philadelphia.
Absolutely. I mean, it would have been a mistake for him to opt in, because then the 76ers would have been pretty handicapped.
Yeah.
And so by him opting out and potentially agreeing to a longer-term contract for less money, it opens up the 76ers to pursue other guys to add to the roster to potentially help them win a championship. Harden's never won a championship. He's smart enough to know that this is his chance, and he's smart enough to know that his value on the market has also greatly plummeted. I mean, he forced his way out of Houston. He forced his way out of the Nets. For him to leave another team, it just wouldn't look good. Second of all, his play during the playoffs, he stunk. I mean, he really stunk, especially when they were eliminated in the second round. I mean, it was just
the number drop-offs are obvious. Like, he was significantly worse in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So it was smart of him to buy into the 76ers completely, to say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes, even if it takes making a sacrifice myself, making a little bit less money to try to win a championship here, to invest in this team, to do this right here, right now. That was the smartest thing he could have done.
So I love this Dejounte Murray move to the Hawks. I hate it for the Heat, but I love it for the Hawks. Yeah. And I also really like Spurs players. Most people around the league do. There's a Spurs way, and as you know, a Spurs tree that, just gets treated a little differently around the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
I just think this is the perfect addition to this team and the perfect partner for Trae Young. Rick Bucher and I were talking about it a little earlier in the show that this feels a little bit Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, like you have earlier, not now, not, Steph, the player that Steph has developed into and being a two-way player and moving without the ball and all of that. I think Trae is still a bit of ways from that, but he's a tremendous offensive player. He's clearly the face of the organization, and Dejounte Murray is a two-way player that is a playmaker and plays defense. So I think this is a perfect pair for him.
I agree, because that's Trae's biggest criticism, right? He's not a great defender. The Hawks were 26 in defense last season. And Dejounte is a great defender. He's hard-nosed. He prides himself on playing good defense. So I think he's really going to complement Trae. I also find it really interesting from the Spurs perspective, because I'll tell you this. So I used to cover the Spurs as well. I've never seen Pop so happy this season. He was just light. He was happy. And I was with him when he won titles. Obviously, the team didn't even make the playoffs this season. But I think he really enjoys coaching young guys. And he really enjoys the challenge of that, the sort of carefree lightness of that. So I think also he's looking forward to the challenge, almost like hearkening back to his Pomona Pitzer days of working with a bunch of younger guys. Meanwhile, this could not have been a better move for Dejounte.
Yeah, I love it for him. I love it for the Hawks. That's interesting that you said that about Pop, because my initial thought was, does this mean that Popovich is kind of like ready to? I mean, they're getting all these draft picks, but you're saying he loves coaching young players. Like, how much longer is Pop going to coach for?
Oh, that's such a good question. I really don't want him to leave.
I don't either. I don't like playing that game. Like, when's Belichick going to leave? When's Brady going to leave? When's Popovich going to leave? But that was my other thought after Dejounte was traded. It was like, maybe, because we've been talking about this with who is going to replace him. He's a Bill Belichick type. Like, who's going to replace Popovich? Who's going to replace Popovich?
Right. Well, you can't replace Popovich. That's the thing. But allegedly, Popovich gave his approval to trade Dejounte. So he was okay with it. He was in on it. I think he's just in a good place right now in his life. There's no pressure on him, and he enjoys the challenge. I mean, it's kind of funny when he's 73 now? Is that correct? I mean, he's up there, and he's working with guys who are, 19 years old? It's kind of funny. I mean, like, even just him not knowing the music they're listening to or the cultural references and learning about that and learning them and getting a kick out of them. And, he's such a great player development coach too. Like, guys fall in love with him. I was with the Spurs when they got Dejounte. And it's funny because Dejounte obviously had a pretty checkered past. And the Spurs really believed in him. And that all fell behind Pop. Pop decided, you know what, I'm going to support you. I believe that you're going to be the best version of yourself when you come to the Spurs. And he absolutely developed into that, turning into an all-star this season. Nobody saw that he'd become an all-star so quickly. So it's really an incredible story. And I think Pop really enjoys that challenge.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited for it. And I'm with you on that. Like, that's what I love about Dejounte going to the Hawks and being a former Spur, is that he did have that opportunity to develop with a Popovich and become a professional and an all-star under, a legendary coach and legendary system and culture in San Antonio. Melissa Rohlin, Fox Sports NBA reporter. Always a pleasure. Make sure you check out her work on foxsports.com. Follow her on social media at Melissa Rohlin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joy.
Always great to have you
with
us.
So fun. So great to be on.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.